All right, everybody, welcome to episode 117 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I am with the co-host with the most, Drew at Doctor underscore PRA. Drew, how are you doing, man?
I'm good.
You're good. He just plays a doctor on this podcast. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, if you see him nodding. He just plays a doctor on this podcast. And if you're watching us on YouTube, which you should be if you have the opportunity, you see that we have a very special guest this week. We got Cal at Calvin and Hobby. Cal, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm great. I really appreciate the opportunity to record with you guys. I haven't been on with either one of you, and certainly look forward to chopping it up here, talking some football.
Oh man, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's funny because we got shouted out by the main DLF account for our appearance on the Trade Addicts pod a couple weeks ago, and now we have one of DLF's finest. So I mean, I just feel like we're very lucky and very fortunate to get all of this DLF love all in the same week.
Yeah, you guys, congrats to you guys, right? You all just got a big deal done.
Yeah, that's really cool to see BetSperts purchase DLF. Like sometimes I'm not sure what's more interesting, the NFL offseason or the fantasy football offseason, because there's all kind of movement. JJ just started his own website, right? And Kyle Yates is making a move. There's a lot of interesting things happening out there.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, the landscape is like just real exciting. A lot of smart people are either coming together or breaking off kind of on their and doing their own thing. And I mean, it's just like, it's so fun to see because it just, little guys like us, we're just looking around and we're just like, man, there's just like so much more opportunity out there. Like if this is something that you have a lot of fun doing, I mean, the fantasy pros put out like a job posting and they're like, hey, we need a content creator, and I feel like a lot more of those things are going to be coming out in the near future, so it is fun. But we talked a little business here. Cal, before we get started with this, just I don't know why people wouldn't know who you are, but on the off chance that someone doesn't know who you are,
Plenty that know. Yeah.
or what you do, just tell them where they can find you, what you're doing, what you're up to.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm at Calvin and Hobby right here. I am doing a couple things that I think are really cool. So on Tuesday nights with Tyler Karp, we do a show called Ask DLF where we take live questions. Really fun. If you didn't catch the one last night, it'd be really, go do it, because Addison Hayes was on as well. I had to miss for the first part with one of my kids at a baseball game. And so I was doing that. And then I crashed the party kind of midway through, which was really fun. And then I've got a series that I'm really excited about. It's called Dynasty Refinery. And I've been the goal of the show is to separate fact from fiction in dynasty football. And there's a lot of noise out there. You can get different narratives from different people, and they're going to contradict. Sometimes they're easy narratives, and we got to push past those. And there's the episode releasing on Saturday is with Adam Harstad. And if you don't know Adam, you should. He's, a lot of groundbreaking work in the fantasy industry. Great thinker, brilliant mind. And it was awesome to sit down and a lot of cool things came out in the interview.
Yeah, I got through the entire first episode with Addison. I'm currently halfway through the second episode, and I just love it. And I saw one of the clips that you had with Adam talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it's so funny because he thinks exactly the opposite way that I do on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's like, I don't know, we'll just lowball it and say 100 times smarter than I am. So now I'm sitting back and I'm going, maybe I should reevaluate this and see if maybe my Amon-Ra hate is warranted or not.
Well, and actually, like we talk about Amon-Ra a couple times, and the clip that I had was more, I guess, specifically to why he had success at the end of the season. Like a lot of people are going to say, like, he only had success because he was the only target there. Hawkinson was out, Swift was out. And his point was, okay, if you don't believe in him, that's fine. But just because that was a talent depraved, Detroit team. It wasn't the worst wide receiver core of all time. It wasn't like historically bad, but it is bad. But just because it was bad doesn't mean that an Amon-Ra shows up anytime you have a bad receiving core. Like, you have to actually be good to be able to do that. That doesn't mean he's going to be good next year, but you can't discount necessarily what he did. He earned those targets, he produced, and he earned more. That doesn't mean he's going to get the same role next year. We gotta look to the future. We don't get any of those pass points anymore. But just sort of a way of thinking. That's kind of the point of the episode, is actually like thinking about what you're thinking about, which is interesting in Dynasty, but that's kind of his thing, and which is really cool.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you bring so many different people from different segments of fantasy. It's not just, you have Addison who's so good with the tools of the trade and the numbers and the analytics side of it. And then you have somebody else come in who's looking at tape and really grading and evaluating these guys. And then you have a guy like Adam who's giving a much more meta approach to how we do. And it's not just seeing the same kind of person over and over again. It's all analytics people. It's all film people. You're getting people from everywhere, and it's really giving the people who are watching it a well-rounded approach to trying to tackle this dynasty thing. So I love it. And
yeah,
I cut you off. I don't know. Tell everybody everything else that you're doing, or
no, that's it. That's the main thing I'm working on right there. I'll write something every now and then for DLF, but mostly just stuff on the YouTube channel. So yeah, you can check it out there.
Nice. So if you are not following Calvin at Calvin and Hobby, do that now, because I love following them. I'm in a group chat with them, and there's just so much good stuff that goes around in that chat, but especially from Cal. So actually, fellas, before we even get into the news, I'm in a draft with Cal actually, and I've been crowdsourcing this one because it's something I've always wanted to do, and I think it's just like fun. This is a great league to do it in. So I'm currently on the clock. I'm sure everybody in there is like, why is he taking so long? This is pretty much the reason why it took so long. But Drew, here I think I need a QB3. I only have 2 QBs. This is a 14-team super flex PPR. I think it's a 1.5 tight end premium. I didn't treat it that way with my tight ends, but that's fine. So a couple of the names that got thrown out for a potential QB3, Taysom Hill, Teddy Bridgewater. That just hurts me to say that out loud. And Marcus Mariota. I don't know if you saw the picture from earlier, but do any of those guys strike your fancy as a QB3, or is there somebody else that you're thinking about that you would take in this situation?
I've been out of it for the last couple of days here, so remind me, what picks do you have coming up in the rookie draft?
So I am currently on the clock, and then in 4 picks, I'm back on the clock. So I'm on that short little turn there.
As in, like, you selected some upcoming picks, right? Like the 10 something.
Oh yeah, I have the 107 and the 109 in the 22 rookie draft.
Okay. You have much of an idea what you're going to do with those yet?
One of them is probably going to tackle a wide receiver. I actually like my wide receivers, even though they're not the sexiest names. It's like Hunter Renfrow, OBJ. It's a lot of older guys, so I think I'm going to want to get some youth at a wide receiver position. But I could see myself potentially taking a quarterback if I like one and they seem like they're going to drop, even though it's February 9th. So by the time like May 9th comes around and we actually have this rookie draft, they're probably going to be the first 3 picks off the board. But right now in my fantasy land, one will fall to one of those picks, and I'll actually like the guy and want to take him. But
I don't know that
you wouldn't go quarterback. Is that what you're telling me?
I think that's probably where I land. If I was going to take one of the quarterbacks, I'd probably take a shot on either Taysom first or maybe Mariota second. See if Mariota lands somewhere that he might be able to have a little bit of a renaissance of sorts, or at least be a bridge for a year or so. But if this other picture you put in there is up to date as well, you've got a couple tight ends in there that could be, if you don't feel great there, see what happens with Higbee here. I know some folks are a little starting a little excited with Brevin Jordan. And then you still got guys like Devontae Parker, Julio, depending on what you feel like he's still worth at this point in Tennessee. So I think there's plenty of options there. I don't think you have to peg yourself into QB3 right at this point. We're still looking at value over need.
Okay. All right. Talking me out of it. So you're thinking maybe a Brevin Jordan type. How do you feel about Jamal Williams? How do you feel about RB 1B in Detroit, or at least that's how he was used last year?
Yeah, I think at this point you're definitely fine taking the backup to a stud somewhere and seeing if there's a share or if there's some peak weeks where maybe they get opportunity because of injury or something like that. So I'd be totally fine with that, especially with some of the games he put up last year.
All right, so here I'm putting your feet to the fire now. Drew's making this pick. Who are you taking?
Who am I taking?
Who are you taking? Who's Drew taking in this situation?
I'd probably start hoarding some running backs at this point, some backup running backs and guys that maybe have some latent value next year. So I like the Jamal Williams idea. I didn't see who else was there. So was it
Gus Edwards
Williams
is hanging around?
Yeah.
Darrell Williams, and then it's pretty gross after that.
It drops off of it, huh?
Yeah.
You still have Do I see the top half of Mecole Hardman down there somewhere as well?
You do see the top half of Mecole Hardman down there.
If you want to take,
would that be your pick? Would Mecole Hardman be your pick?
I would probably take. I would take Jamal Williams over Mecole Hardman, and I think he has a better chance of having value next year for you.
So Jamal's your pick. All right, Cal. We did enough talking. Let's get your big brain in here and maybe tell me a good answer. You may also be plotting against me. You're on mute, brother.
I'm having some technical difficulties today. Sorry, y'all. No, I was just looking at your team. I really like what you've done here. Like, this is great. So you were the one that went really early on Javonte Williams.
Yes, I did.
I remember he was like the third or fourth running back off the board, whatever it was, in the first round.
Yes.
In a super flex tight end premium. I thought that was like, but I like the way you put everything else together here because you ended up with Trevor Lawrence. You must have taken him right after that.
Yep, that was my second round pick.
Yeah. And then Antonio Gibson. I mean, you like J.K. Dobbins is like my favorite buy right now, and you must have snatched him up at some point, like before I could. So I like. I mean, you got enough youth, and like you've got. I kind of agree with your first impression that you've got to get a quarterback, just because it is a 14-team league. You've got two. Aaron Rodgers could walk away tomorrow. I mean, like, you don't know. You could have one quarterback instead of two, right? So
I could.
Let's see. This is, here you go. Right? You got disposable Coop. So you got Coop right here after you. How many quarterbacks does he have? He has two. Oh, but one of them was Tom Brady.
I think he traded Tom Brady.
Did he trade Brady? Okay, hang
on. He traded him for like $10 fab.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, he's got Tannehill. He's got Winston. He's probably looking quarterback. Or he should. I mean, I just think in this kind of league, like, it's going to cost you more to trade for one later.
Yeah.
Than Mecole Hardman, right? Like, if you got to add another quarterback after this, it's going to cost you more than Hardman. So,
and I'm not going to lie to you, I'll never trade for Mecole Hardman. So,
or or Jamal Williams, or like whoever.
For sure,
now,
any of those guys. Probably going to end up costing me like a second if I'm in the hunt, and all of a sudden fall on hard times. All those guys are probably a second easy.
Right. I mean, I do think like a guy like Marcus Mariota gets an opportunity. I think the quarterback landscape is really interesting. I'm curious to see how things play out. But I mean, even whether it's choose your poison out of Bridgewater or Heineke or look, I'm the biggest Taysom Hill stan in the world. I love Taysom Hill from a fantasy perspective, and I'm a New Orleans guy. But Sean Payton was the one that loved him. I don't know if anybody else in New Orleans is going to like him. So, and Sean Payton had the ability to start him and not lose his job. Who, like, Dennis Allen doesn't have that luxury, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, Gardner Minshew's still there. Like, none of these are great options, but just might be worth taking a risk on getting somebody here. And like I said, because I don't know that any of the other running backs or wide receivers or tight ends are necessarily going to be difference makers for you anyway.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the way I would be thinking about this if I had that.
So
I like a lot of your players. You really have you built a good roster.
So, Cal, I'm putting your feet to the fire now. Are you taking Taysom Hill in this situation?
Man, last year would have been an easy yes for me. Not this year. Gosh, probably Gardner Minshew. I think like out of everybody who's available, Minshew or Mariota probably would have the odds on favorites to have a job based on who's available now. Maybe Mason Rudolph. One of those, I think would be what I'd be thinking.
All right, I can't do Mason Rudolph. I've actually watched him play in the NFL, and I've never seen any good out of him. I am not a Taysom Hill stan, but I have seen him do good things in the NFL.
That's true.
I've seen Gardner Minshew do good things in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Marcus Mariota do good things in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
This is a tough one. This is like, you know what, guys?
This is also like the 26th round, right?
What's that?
Let's wait. Yeah, there's no such thing as a reach right here. Just whoever. Yeah.
I think I'm taking Taysom Hill. I think I'm going to go with Taysom.
Nice.
The New Orleans Saints are like $73 trillion over the cap, so that's going to be.
That's true.
It's going to be hard for them to pursue anybody worthwhile in free agency. They may use their first on like a Sam Howell or maybe a Malik Willis if he falls that far, even though I think the hype is just going to continue to build and he won't. But all right, so I took Taysom Hill. That was fun. Actually, you know what? We got a question here, so we're not going to talk about me anymore. We got one here from Kevin McPherson. Rodgers, I'm assuming Aaron, Elijah Moore, the 109 and the 209, or Lamar Jackson. That's Tyler Huntley, the 114, the 214 in a 14-team super flex. This is very interesting. Very interesting. So, actually, I'll leave this up here because there's a lot of pieces. Cal, why don't you go first? If you're looking at this trade in a 14-team super flex, which side are you going with?
14-team super flex, I'm definitely thinking quarterback. Like, I'm raising the value of quarterbacks here. So that puts the gap between Lamar and the other side, in my opinion, further. I love Elijah Moore, but I don't trust that Rodgers is going to play too long. Like, he's just, to me, he's one of those players that, like, I don't know where he went in our draft, but he would have gone late. I did a dynasty startup with the CBS guys earlier today, and like Aaron Rodgers went in like the 11th round or something like that, right? So now that was one QB, so a little bit different. But Lamar is to me is a top 6 quarterback, and in a 14-team league, if I can get a top 6 quarterback with the upside to be the number 1 quarterback, that's the way I'd go. He's still young.
So I took Rodgers 3-3 in our 14-teamer, so 3rd round, 3rd pick. I knew that I was going to need a QB because that wraparound was going to evaporate the QBs real quick. So,
and I got Lamar at 1-9.
And you got that's a round and a half difference, pretty much. Between Lamar and Rodgers.
And the 109 to the 114 in this draft, to me, is not that big of a difference. Like, once you get to the 109, you're not getting a hugely valuable asset anyway. It's not going to be like last year's draft or the year before. So I think those top picks are going to be more valuable. But the 109, you're not getting yourself into if this was the 104, I would probably think about that a little bit like that might sway it to that side. But as presented here, I definitely, the Lamar side to me is the one I want.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that because I haven't looked at everybody yet, but I feel like the cutoff of players that you're going to be excited to draft dries up at like 106, maybe 107 this year, as opposed to last year when you were in the second round and you were still like, oh, Elijah Moore, oh, Rondell Moore, oh, you were kind of still excited at like 202, 203, 204. I think this year it's like 107 maybe, and I haven't looked at everybody, so that might change a little bit, but I think by 109 it's going to be like between 109 and 114, you're probably looking at the same tier of guy anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm with you 100%. It's the Lamar side for me. We're so weird with Lamar. We find reasons to not like him, and I don't know why because he's really, really good at real football and at fantasy. And last year we were like, well, he didn't have a really good season, and I was like, yeah, because he was throwing to me out there because Rashad Bateman was hurt and Hollywood was hurt, and they had Devonta Freeman and Tyson Hill, and, like all these guys that were like just guys that they were getting off the street, guys that were, supposed to be fourth or fifth on their depth chart, and he was still doing well until he got hurt with those guys. So give me Lamar. I mean, you hurt
and
me
you
a
get
little
Huntley.
bit.
Like if you're worried about him getting hurt, you still got like Huntley proved that he can be a good fantasy asset too, right? If he starts, you can plug him in. So
And you know what? If you really want to get spicy at 114, you're probably still going to have like a Desmond Ritter or a Carson Strong available. So if you really want to triple down on quarterback, drop that 5 picks, get one of those guys. Pretty much everyone this year is going to be developmental in one year or another at the quarterback position. So get that guy. Hope he ends up on a good team that develops him, and maybe you end up in this trade with 3 quarterbacks, and then 214 do whatever you want because
right
at 214 you're throwing the dart anyway. What do you think, Drew?
My first instinct is I like the Rodgers side. I think maybe I have a little bit more optimism that his attitude skews more to the let me just show everybody wrong. I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to do good things, and I'm still going to be an MVP at another team. And even if it's only for 2 or 3 more years, what you can get in the draft this year or next year if you still have picks in 23, you can backfill Rodgers. You look at a guy like Rocky who's found a way to backfill all of his old QBs for how many years now. I love Elijah Moore as well, so it's hard to get away from him, knowing you've got a good asset there already. And I like the flexibility of the 109, 209, and you can package those and try to move up a little bit. So if you want to get into that first tier cutoff of 106, 107, you have a better shot at doing that with those picks. Or if you want to move back and you want to offer somebody the 109, you still have the option to go back, dip into the value where you see it, and get another quarterback there if you want as well. So I think I like it for the flexibility. And again, that's just a gut shot call that Rodgers wants to go and, say F you to everybody who's been downing him and his organization that hasn't, on paper at least, seemed to support him in the last few drafts. So that's I think that's where my gut goes to start.
All right, so we had Drew go with the Rodgers and Elijah Moore side. Cal and I selected the correct answer with the Lamar Jackson side. So there you go, Kev. I hope we helped you out, and I hope you get the best side of this trade, no matter what you choose. So before we get into the timeline, let's head into the news. And last week, the majority of the head coaching jobs were filled, and then this week, everything else got filled. So we have Doug Peterson hired as the head coach for the Jags, which made me feel a lot better about my Trevor Lawrence pick because we've seen what he can do with quarterbacks. I mean, Carson Wentz was an MVP until he shredded his knee. He won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. I mean, teams since then have been having trouble winning games with Nick Foles, and he won a Super Bowl. So we got that one there. We got Mike McDaniel hired as the head coach for the Dolphins. Everyone is kind of hyping that one up as one of the really good head coach hirings in the league. We have Lovie Smith hired as the head coach for the Texans. And I forgot to write this down, but I remembered it. Dennis Allen hired as the head coach of the Saints. So, Drew, which one of these kind of are you most excited about? Which one are you like, okay, like this can be good?
I'm going to read a tweet from our good buddy Eric Romoff here at Fantasy Nav, who said, I'm getting real Breeze meets Peyton vibes from the Tua McDaniel marriage. Up-and-coming coach known for scheming around players' abilities and shortcomings gets a young, undersized QB who's shown good accuracy. Long way to go to live up to that comp, but I love the pairing. And that just gave me warm fuzzies all up inside today. I think, I like that a lot. There are a couple clips out there of the first FaceTime between them, which was really cool to see. So I am excited about that for Tua. Hopefully, a coach who's really supportive, and you've seen in other organizations, when you give a player the tools and the time to get there, some special things can happen. So that's probably the one that jumps out to me the most out of that group.
Yeah, I say Mike McDaniel was like fancy Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell had that introductory press conference, and he was like, "We're gonna bite kneecaps, and we're gonna mess people up," and everyone got like real behind that, and they were real excited. And Mike McDaniel has a nice suit on. He's in the private jet, and he's FaceTiming with Tua, and he's like, "Dude, I'm gonna get all of the greatness that you have inside out." And I think that's really important for Tua, because it seems like Brian Flores, maybe Tua wasn't his guy. Maybe there was some behind the scenes argument about what they should do with Tua, how they should use Tua. And I'm sure Tua, while he played decently, that's got to weigh on you when your boss kind of doesn't really want you to be there, but you're there because the owner of the company wants you to be there. That's got to weigh on you a little bit. So now having a coach who's like, "Listen, I got you, Tua. I've seen what you did at Alabama. I saw how special you were. That year was tanking for Tua. We didn't even know who Joe Burrow was when the season began. Joe Burrow, who's that fifth string guy from Ohio State that couldn't hack it and had to transfer to LSU. Like, that's what we were saying about Joe Burrow for the 10 seconds we talked about him in, August of 2020. But, now, he's got a guy who really, is behind him. So that's going to be interesting. I wonder how the offense is going to look. I wonder if the draft is maybe where they invest some more in weapons for Tua, whether that's a new tight end if Mike Gesicki doesn't hang around, free agent Mike Gesicki, or maybe they get like an actual real offensive lineman. Maybe they do that, or maybe they say, "Hey, Jalen Waddle's real good. Let's get another guy in this wide receiver heavy draft to go across from him, and we really put some points on the board." So that's a fun one. I said it before. I like Doug Peterson, man. Jacksonville didn't do the hiring process the right way, but they ended up in a really good spot. They got lucky. I mean, they did get lucky that Doug Peterson was like, "All right, like, I know I wasn't your first choice, probably wasn't even your third choice, but everyone else realizes what kind of a operation this is, and I can walk in here and I can still perform." And I think that's going to work wonders for Trevor Lawrence. So that's the one that's the most interesting to me, especially after the whole Urban situation. Cal, which one do you think is most interesting?
Well, you guys covered the Mike McDaniel one really well. Like I'm the most excited, I would say, about that one from a fantasy perspective, because I like what it does for Tua. For the first time in a while, Tua's got a head coach who likes him and wants him to be the quarterback and wants him to succeed. So I love that aspect of it, because I do like Tua. One of the, I guess, underrated things that happen is in Houston, nobody, like, the Lovie Smith hiring is uninspiring, though it's safe. Like, and I do think like they want some stability in that organization. I think he provides that. And one of the things I do like is Pep Hamilton got promoted to the offensive coordinator, who's already got, Davis Mills. He already has him playing well. He's already got, a rapport there, a familiarity. And when David Culley got fired, my first thought was, man, Davis Mills, there's no way he's going to stay as the quarterback. Now, with Pep Hamilton staying there and being the offensive coordinator, it makes me think it's possible that he does keep that job and they roll into next year with him, and maybe even bring back Tyrod, because Pep goes back to the Chargers with Tyrod as well. And so, maybe he keeps just some familiarity there in that sense too. So makes me think that Davis Mills might not be a bad investment in Superflex leagues. You can get him super late and he might have that job. And Pep Hamilton's he's a really good quarterback coach. And I feel like he's going to be a good offense coordinator too.
That's how Cal is doing big brain things, because I don't even pay attention to the Houston Texans, because they're as an organization, they're just so messed up from top to bottom. And Cal brings some good points to the table about the Houston Texans, who I don't even think about. So I love that. So that's pretty much the news. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about Alvin Kamara, because he did what he did, and you either think that he's never going to play a down of football again, or you think he's going to be just fine. So you're not changing anybody's mind on that one. So we can breeze past that, and we can go to what we do best. We can go right to what we saw on the timeline. And this was funny. I'm not sure who put this on here, but this was just funny. I had to make this the first thing we talked about. Friend of the show, Linda at Lindellians. If we don't get a Progressive becoming your parents' Super Bowl commercial, I'm gonna riot. Yeah, there's got to be one. Like, they have to have one in the can that they've just been sitting on. That's just epic. I don't even know what it's gonna be about, but it's gonna be hilarious, and we're all gonna be better for it. So I'm with you, Linda. Drew, you like those commercials? Are you hoping
you can't not? You gotta have one of those on there. And we're all approaching that age where we're either slowly becoming, or in many ways have become our parents, and it's a little scary depending on what the task is and what the day is. I heard you got kids, Calvin, so we see those moments passing down, and oh gosh, did I really do that to my parents? And so it'll be funny to see what we've got. I'm promising not to watch anything early. I saw somebody else tweet today. This is where they're purists. They want to wait until the Super Bowl to see the commercials live. And I think this is going to be an awesome Super Bowl altogether. Great teams, great vibe going in. And I can't wait to see what they put out.
Cal, are you on board with this too? Let's get one of these commercials out here.
Well, like, other than the fact that, like, I feel like, like like they must have followed me around and like seen what I do, because I feel seen in those. I do have, like you said, Drew, I have 4 kids, and I feel like so many of those things, I'm like, what's wrong with them saying that? Like, that's good. Don't correct them. He should ask that question.
Absolutely. You're thinking about how to exit when you start parking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Escape plan,
what's wrong
man.
with that?
You don't want 2 extra kids in the car, or 2 extra hours with kids in the car after this event.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny, because Drew, you're talking about things that you do that, like, you're like, oh man. And my oldest son is 8, so he's at that age where he walks into a room, turns the light on, and immediately walks out. And I'm like, why are you leaving the light on? I'm going to start charging you for the bill. And every time I say it, I go, oh my God, my parents did the same thing to me, and I hated it. But I actually have to pay the electric bill, so I do get so mad about that. I'm like, turn the light off when you leave the room. So yeah, those Progressive commercials are so good. Those and the Baker Mayfield commercials are like, they're so good. And yeah, we need one of those, 2 of those, if they feel so inclined to.
I'm gonna steal from my timeline real quick on this. If we're gonna get an insurance commercial, what we need is Rob Gronkowski announcing he is going to sign on into the military so that he can get the insurance at USAA.
Oh, yeah, just go ahead and enlist, man. Just join the National Guard, please. Do it right.
He needs it.
That would be a great commercial, though. He shows up to like a recruiting facility in like Tampa, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna join the Army or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, all right, what's your reason for joining? Because I want the USAA discounts. And everyone.
Could you imagine him trying to fake the workouts for the Army? Trying to send in his videotapes where he record the same sprint 4 different times.
First of all, I think if they actually saw Gronk in person, they would be like, I think this guy works out a little bit. So
special.
Yeah.
They're so bad.
But the actress who plays the call center employee, the look on her face is just so great. It makes that entire.
It is.
I'm special. And she's just like, okay, like I can't respond to this. So Linda, I'm with you. I hope we get those two. I think we're all with you. We hope you get that. We hope we get that. We'll be better off for it. But we'll get into some real questions now. This first one is from friend of the show, Justin, JR_FF at Run DFF. How much stock do you guys put into postseason workouts / events? For instance, was Malik Willis your QB1 before the Senior Bowl? And if not, did his performance vault him? So this is an interesting question because this is the off-season process. And it all depends on how much work you're doing, while the actual NFL season is going on. I tell everybody all the time, I don't do any rookie work until my team is completely out of it. Some years that means I'm doing it in November. Other years, like this year, I got an extra week in January. So Malik Willis, he's an interesting one because the quarterbacks this year, they were all the same guy to me. Like, yes, they all do different things and they all have different talents, but it wasn't last year where it was like Trevor Lawrence is the clear-cut number one. He is a generational talent, which is a term I hate to use, but he actually was. But we had a lot of good quarterbacks coming out, but he was the clear-cut number one. This year it was like, sure, you could convince me about Kenny Pickett. Sure, Matt Corral. All right, Malik Willis. I guess gun to my head before the Senior Bowl, I would have said Matt Corral, but it wouldn't have been with any real confidence. And yes, the Senior Bowl has moved Malik Willis up to QB1 for me, but it's because of all the reports that came out from practice that his day one was not good. He had some of the best passes and some of the worst passes of day one. But then after that, he got grounded. He, whatever, maybe the jitter, it was the first day jitters. And he was the man after that. He's shown that he's got arm talent. He's obviously got elite running ability, which, hey, we play fantasy and running quarterbacks worth their weight in gold. So, yes, that moved him up for me, but only because all those guys were like all in the same tier for me. What about you, Drew?
Yeah, I haven't done a whole lot here yet. I think ultimately I agree that Willis has what looks like to be the best upside of this group. I think the other few names that are in there, I think I've just kind of in my mind equated them to be, maybe they'll be Mac Jones, right? Maybe they'll be functional, put in the right system. They'll be able to do well given a year. They'll be able to step in and maybe play the last few weeks of this year in the rookie year, and then hopefully, take another offseason and make a jump. But for any of the super flex drafts that I'm in, where I have an earlier pick, I think my plan is to target Malik Willis if I can. Feel for some of the leagues where I know the people in them, I'll feel it out a little bit and see, where other people are thinking, do I need to pay up to get there, or do I think that he still might fall middle of the first round or the back half of the first round where I don't need to do that. But I think if I'm taking one out of this group, I would definitely like to have him as my first quarterback option, just based on whether it's the rushing upside. He's got a huge arm. He was making some great touch throws as well, I'm thinking last couple of days, which were highlighted. So it's a whole new generation, a new wave of quarterbacks coming in, and a lot of optimism for some of these guys coming out of smaller schools with just crazy talent, and they just need a process to refine them a little bit. And then, hopefully some organizations will actually do that.
All right, Cal, what about you? Does the off-season stuff weigh in your mind any?
Yeah, I mean, it's all data points that I think do help us to some degree. And I think that, like the Senior Bowl is nice to see. There are times where you can see how somebody like him coming from Liberty, having him around NFL coaches, having him around, that is good to see that he seemed to respond well. I do think the best case scenario for him would be landing in a situation where the coaching staff likes him in the way that Jalen Hurts was liked, where he gets a chance towards the end of a season, maybe if a team is out of it. I think landing spot is probably going to be really important for him. And I like his athleticism. Like there's a lot of things that I think could be really good for the NFL, but or could be good at least certainly for fantasy. We'll see on the NFL side. And Matt Corral is still the guy for me because I think he's got the best combination of athleticism and arm talent, and played at the SEC school. There's a lot of things about him that tend to fit that profile. There's a lot of work that I still have to do on this as well, but Corral, Willis, Howell in some order for me right now. That's the order. But this is definitely a year where, look, it didn't matter where Trevor Lawrence was going. He was going to be the first pick last year. This year, I do think there is going to be a little bit of like, depending on where they go and where they land, that could really change things.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting, especially if you're playing in super flex leagues. It's going to be really interesting to see how we feel about these quarterbacks, where they end up. It's going to be fun. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. This is SF Dynasty FF at Quintoris _. Who is the first QB off the board? And I want to talk about each of these guys a little bit, since we talked somewhat about the postseason process. Who's the first QB off the board in the 2022 NFL draft? Sam Howell, Matt Corral, Malik Willis, or Kenny Pickett. So this is going to be a fun one. And Cal, we'll start with you, since you spoke highly of Matt Corral. Do you think he'll be the first one off the board in the NFL draft?
So I just wanted to go pull up and just see. It looks like the latest Daniel Jeremiah mock draft has Kenny Pickett at 9. I mean, whatever you want to think about his mock drafts. I feel like, and that's the first time a quarterback goes on his mock draft, is number 9, Kenny Pickett, to the Denver Broncos, which is interesting. After that, I mean, are the Jets going to get a quarterback? Probably not. Washington could go. That's where he has Matt Corral going. That could be fun. Like, I would really like that landing spot for him. So who goes first? Man, probably whoever makes a trade up into maybe the back half of the top 10 or somewhere in there. I think that's probably where they're going to go. And I don't know that we're going to get super excited about that. Like, I just think this is one of those years where, like, we're not going to necessarily get super excited about it. And you could see a lot of super flex leagues that don't even, the first player that goes isn't even necessarily a quarterback. And hasn't been a lot of years like that, but I think it could happen.
I agree. What do you think, Drew? Who do you think is going to be the first guy off the board in the 2022 NFL draft?
For the little bit that I've looked at, I think I'm pretty sure I voted on this poll, and I put my check mark next to Matt Corral. I think NFL teams are going to want something probably more traditional, more safe. I don't think anybody makes a crazy jump like the 49ers did to go and grab Malik Willis super early, like they did with Lance. I think there's a separation of talent there between the two of them. So I think it's going to be Matt Corral, but that's based on some pretty broad strokes at this point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we got looks like maybe one for Kenny Pickett, one for Matt Corral. I'm gonna keep the train going here. I'm gonna go with Malik Willis, and here's the reason why. I don't think he's necessarily the best quarterback, or you may say he has the highest upside, but people can probably argue almost all these guys with upside.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, and I'm a draft nerd. I've watched every draft for a bunch of years now, 25 years now, I guess. And there are always guys that, as soon as the last regular season NFL game is played, we're like, yeah, this guy might be like in the 20s, or maybe even one of those last couple of picks. And then they skyrocket. We've seen it over and over again. And I think Malik Willis is going to be that guy. We're already talking about him after the Senior Bowl. He's going to get invited to the Combine. if he runs really fast and he throws really well. There's another one. Oh man, I got to move him up some more. And I think then there's going to be a pro day, which is going to be a bunch of scripted stuff to make him look good. He's going to look crisp rolling out, and he's going to, be hitting, open receivers in the hands. And you're just going to hear that ball snap, and we're going to go, man, this Malik Willis guy, if he figures it out in the NFL, he's going to be one of the best. And I think that hype train is just going to continue throughout this process. Now, obviously, he runs slow at the combine. This all changes. He throws poorly at the combine. This all changes. But I think the hype train is just going to continue throughout the process. And by the end of this, we're going to go, man, we thought Malik Willis might, go to the Lions at 31 or 32, whatever pick they end up with after the Super Bowl. And now we're talking about him at 6 to Carolina or 9 to Denver if they strike out, So it's going to be very interesting, but I think the hype train pushes Malik Willis into QB1 for the NFL draft. So it'll be fun to say. We 3 different answers, and I really can't argue against any of them. I usually like to joke around and say that I had the right answer, and on this poll, I'm in the majority. That doesn't mean it's the right answer. It's just what the majority of people think. But this is one where it's just like you can even Sam Howell. I mean, I've heard draft analysts gush about Sam Howell and how we're disrespecting him, and how we can't look at what he did this year because he lost all of his receiving weapons and Javonte and Michael Carter. So it's gonna be fun. That's gonna be a fun one to really watch because obviously, as we've all said previously, this quarterback class isn't exactly what we would call star-studded or epic. So a lot of different things can happen there. So this was a good one, and this is one that people argue about a lot. This is from Bird is the Word at Bird, BURD_IS. How early is too early for a rookie draft? Picked up an orphan team and found out they hold their draft at 3 p.m. the day after the draft ends. I prefer at least a week or so to digest before drafting. Thoughts? So, Drew, thoughts? When do you want your rookie draft to go down?
I'm good with whenever. I mean, whatever the league goes with. I know a lot of folks like to have it even before the NFL draft and roll with the variability and the chance that comes out of it. Really lets people to get some sneaky value later on and make some of those later picks more worth it. And then other folks like to have more information, or they want to maybe bridge the gap between the draft and preseason. So they'll push it into June or July or something like that. I'm good with whatever, really. I think at this point, I just want mine spread out. I don't want to have 14 of them all starting on the same weekend. So if I can get them spread out a little bit, I will always vote to try to move things forward or backwards, depending on where my other leagues are. But I think if I were to pick an ideal spot, I think a few days after the draft is fine. I think for most of us that are watching, we're ready to go as soon as things get rolling from the NFL standpoint. And that's part of the excitement, is to see which names get assigned to picks now and what can you do with those.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I was in a league for a few years that did it. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before the draft. And I remember one year that meant I got Hakeem Butler because he was supposed to be a high pick, and then the actual NFL draft happened, and I used the first round pick on Hakeem Butler, and who ended up getting drafted, I think, in the 4th round of the actual NFL draft, and we've seen his career since. But 2 years ago, I had 2 first round picks, 10 and 12. I got Justin Herbert and Justin Jefferson. So,
You did.
The fact that people slept on those guys going into the draft actually worked out in my favor. So those are fun. I only commish one league, and our rookie draft starts the Saturday after the NFL draft. So it's approximately a week after. I figure that gives people enough time to digest, see where guys are, see how they're going to fit in, see if they like their landing spot or not, and do whatever other research they have to do. But yeah, I mean, it's all personal preference. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to do it. I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess it's good to have time to digest, but kind of if you've been, listening to I mean, there are so many good Devi guys out there, so many guys that have been talking about all the guys that we've been talking about for years. You got your Rays, your Ray G's, you got, King. Their list is a mile long, and if you're like listening to those guys, you kind of know what they are, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then it's just kind of looking at like, okay, he ended up on this team. I kind of like it for what they do with the position, or I don't like it for what they do with the position. So, I get it, but I'm kind of like with Drew. Whenever it is when it is. What do you think, Cal?
I think if you are the kind of person in February asking this question, you want it as early as possible because you are going to have an edge in your league. So, like, whenever it is, this gives you plenty of time. You know when it is, plenty of time between now and then. I just, while you guys were talking, I went and looked at the ADP on DLF from May and then April. So like before and after the draft. And I could argue there's like plenty of guys that are on the ADP beforehand who got either got dropped or came way up after the draft that shouldn't have, like Trey Sermon rose and shouldn't have. Amon-Ra went down and probably shouldn't have. It is a data point that you need, no doubt. Like that's draft capital is going to be something that has good priors, as Adam said on the show that'll release Saturday. Good priors, like the NFL knows what they're doing, and they draft better players earlier on average. That doesn't mean all the time, but usually. And so it is something that we need. But you'll have that info here. If it starts at 3, is it a slow draft? I'm guessing. And you'll have time. Don't worry. You'll have time. You'll be ready, Bird. You'll be ready.
Bird will be ready. I'm glad Cal brought up Trey Sermon because any chance I get to speak disparagingly about Trey Sermon, I take the opportunity. So Drew's laughing over there because he knows I spoke out against the evils of Trey Sermon during the offseason last year, and certain people did not believe me. So don't do that to yourself. Bird, don't draft this year's Trey Sermon, whoever he might be. There will be at least one. Don't do
Keyshawn
it.
Vaughn.
I'm just thinking of people, in that draft, right? How many people had CEH as their RB4 to start until the Chiefs took him, and then all of a sudden they got tricked into taking him at 101 or 102 in their draft.
Well, so drafting before the draft would have been better, right? Like,
totally.
You're right. Like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going like 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there, and then all of a sudden was in the conversation.
Jonathan Taylor was 101, 102, where he should have been.
Yep.
And then that's where you really can, that's a good example too. That's when you kind of clean up on some insane value, because if you did a draft beforehand and you got him at 108, and now people are not only talking about him, they were talking about him as like a top 5 startup pick that year, his rookie year. It's like, okay, like, hey, I spent a 108, but now I can get top 5
you
value.
Got in the world.
Go, yeah. Like, and that's another kind of, like you said, that's another point where it's just like, oh yeah, like, cool, let's do this, or you could lose a ton of value, like King Butler. So, I mean, either way, like, it's, I don't know. I just think it's fun. I couldn't do all of my drafts before the actual NFL draft, but I had one for a little while, and it was fun just kind of seeing like, all right, like, what are people going to do? How are they going to approach this without knowing landing spots and having that kind of information? So it's I could do 1 or 2, but I couldn't do all of them like that. This next one here is from Kyle Williams at Bet on the Game. I think I'm gonna bet on the game this weekend. Put a little cashish
I
down.
got a couple squares.
You got a couple squares, right? Yeah, I'm gonna some credits on this. Pennsylvania, I can bet legally, so that's fine. I can drive to Jersey and hit the sports book, so we're good. I can talk about it, not get fined, as Marshawn would say. But Kyle is saying here, Justin Jefferson is the dynasty wide receiver one. There's no argument against it. Kyle, appreciate you. Like what you're doing out there. The argument is Jamar Chase. That's the argument. And we can get into it if you want to. Listen, Justin Jefferson is so good. And if you take him as the wide receiver one, nobody on this planet is going to say you made a bad pick. But if you're saying there's no argument against it, Jamar Chase, that's the argument. I don't even have to get into anything else. Jamar Chase is the argument. What do you think, Kyle? Is there an argument against Justin Jefferson at wide receiver one?
There wasn't 9 months ago, or whatever. There is now, because his teammate from LSU came in and bested his records, right? Like Justin Jefferson set him, and then Chase came in and beat him. And to me, those are the two in the top tier. Put them in whatever preference order you want. I want the guy that's got his college teammate with him, who, that's what I kept saying last year at this time. Like, when you watch those two play, they look like they share a brain at times. Like, how did you know to throw the ball right there? And how did you know to make that adjustment that you made? And, that there's a chemistry there, and you're going to have that for a long time. Justin Jefferson is amazing. I love Justin Jefferson. I love everything about him. And if you take him one, great. But there is an argument. There is an argument, Kyle. No doubt.
Drew, is there an argument? Do you think there is an argument? Let me know.
There's always an argument. I love Justin Jefferson. I've got him in as many places as I possibly can. I think he's an unbelievable talent, and it blew my mind. And I do not watch a lot of college ball, but to know that he was playing second fiddle to Jamar Chase in college, it just absolutely blew my mind when I was just processing that mentally. So that reset my expectations for what Jamar Chase should be this year. And I think he surpassed everybody's expectations. And I agree, Cal. The connection there is so fun to see. I mean, some of the best duos in NFL history took how many seasons? I mean, how much work did Brady put in with Edelman and Welker and some of those guys to get on the same page? Montana and Jerry Rice, right? You go way back, and like, how much time do they invest in getting to where these guys? Seems like they've skipped like 6 chapters in the book already. It's just it's poetry in motion. I love seeing it. I'm so excited for this week's Super Bowl. I think it's going to be such a good game, strength against strength. I think there's going to be some really good flash to it. I think there'll be some slower moments where the Rams defense will have a chance to show what they're capable of. But I just hope Joe Burrow escapes alive. That's kind of my one hope. I hope he comes out of here standing up, whether he has the trophy or not. I go either way. I love Matt Stafford as well. I love his journey. A lot of people are pulling for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that both these guys who have cut, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, who have come into the NFL and just dominated from day one. I mean, they were on the same team in college with Joe Burrow. Like,
it's not fair.
I mean, that's why they're obviously going to be talked about as one of the greatest college teams of all time, because we bashed on CEH a little bit, but he was on that team as well. I mean, it's just so much talent on that team. So Kyle, unfortunately, there is an argument against it. His name is Jamar Chase. He's good. Justin Jefferson's good. I mean, that's the best part about those two, is like, if you say to yourself, you have maybe middle of the first round pick in a startup draft, and you go, I am going to leave the first round with a wide receiver. Just take the second one, and you're not going to be disappointed. Like, if Justin Jefferson goes first, Kyle's picking before me, he takes Justin. Cool, I got Jamar Chase. Someone else is take Jamar Chase. Cool, I got Justin Jefferson. Like, you're not upset taking either one of those guys.
Do you
or
want the
trading
fillet
for
or
either
the
one.
lobster?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
know what I love? I love the confidence of Justin Jefferson. I don't know if you saw the quote that he had today, but he was like basically saying he feels sorry for Jalen Reagor for being compared to him all the time. Like the confidence to say that. I love it. Like get out there and do your thing, dude. Like I love that kind of stuff.
So it's funny that you brought up Jalen Reagor because he's another guy that I any chance I could speak poorly about him, I do. Um, I live right outside of Philadelphia, so
Mm.
I was sitting around for that draft. I was with some buddies, and Eagles are on the clock. They take Jalen Reagor, right? And I go, "This is a terrible pick." I didn't like Jalen Reagor throughout the process, so that was known. I think I was in a minority there. But all of my friends who are Eagles fans hated the pick. Go to sleep, wake up in the morning. There's all these pieces about how Jalen Reagor is the perfect pick for the Eagles, how he's going to fit into the offense. And it's like the Men in Black came in with the mind wipe machine. Everyone loved them all of a sudden. I was like, wait a minute, I was hanging
Yep.
out with you guys last night and you hated the pick, but now you love him.
Yep.
And I said, Justin Jefferson's going to be that guy. He was when I had graded out those guys for that draft class, he was my wide receiver too. Justin Jefferson was my wide receiver too. I only had CeeDee Lamb in front of him,
Mm-hmm.
and now that just shows that when you do that, you can be wrong because Justin Jefferson was obviously the wide receiver one. But
Yeah, but not many people had him. I don't remember anybody really having him at 1.
yeah, oh
Um,
no.
he was. I mean, for a lot of people, he was 4, 5, 6. I mean, like it was.
Oh,
Nobody
yeah.
thought like this is the guy. In fact, there was a lot of talk that he wasn't going to be able to do anything but play out of the slot. I don't know if you guys
Yes,
remember the
I
talk about
do.
that.
I was just like, man, we don't watch people play football, do we? Because if that's a thought that you really had, you didn't watch LSU. I mean,
Yeah,
that dude can play from anywhere. He can play from outer space
yeah,
if you need him to. I mean, he's
exactly.
just so good. But yeah, that's just my funny little story about Jalen Reagor and how Philly hated him for like 6 hours
Mm.
and then loved him. And now they trust me, they all hate him again. They're all back on hating Jalen Reagor. So uh but that's a good one. I'm glad you had the Jalen Reagor pull on that one. Um let's hit this one. This will be our last one for the night. This is from Tony FF at It's Just Fantasy _ keep trade cut Chris Godwin, DK Metcalf, and DJ Moore. Who are you keeping? Who are you trading? And who are you cutting? Cal, why don't you start us off on this one?
DK is my favorite of the group, so I'll keep him. I know there's a lot of people who are worried about Russell Wilson. They're worried about him moving around. And I just would like to remind everybody that DK Metcalf was the wide receiver 4 during the time that Geno Smith started those games. So he's fine. Like DK Metcalf, I'm not worried about him. Buy low if you can right now. If somebody's nervous and wants to sell, do that. Then the next one the other two are so good, right? If I'm gonna separate the two, I'll say trade DJ Moore and cut Godwin, and I like an injury settlement maybe, like with Godwin. Maybe that's what we'll do.
There you go. Drew, what's your keep trade cut here?
Very similar to Cal. I do like DK. However, I think he's the one I can get the most value for right now. So I will trade him, assuming I can find somebody that will give me a fair package back. DJ Moore, on the other hand, I think is the most underrated. So I will keep the upside there. And then similarly, I will cut Chris Godwin. I think the injury tips it over and, see where he lands and who he ends up with. That's see where I go in, I think.
Yeah, this is a tough one because all three of these guys are really good. In my opinion, Chris Godwin is the best of these three. But he's the cut because I think that I can quickly find another guy at the bottom of the bench that I can drop and pick him back up. So, but I gotta drop one of these guys. He's gonna be the guy. Obviously, Drew mentioned it. The injury, people are down on him right now. And like Cal mentioned about DK, I think this is a good time to go and try to buy yourself some Chris Godwin because there's a lot of uncertainty. Where is he going to play? The injury, So I think now is the time. I don't care where he goes, man. He's good. He is just really good. And yeah, you might miss some time with the ACL injury, but once he gets back, he's going to do what he's been doing. Um, I think I'm going to keep DK because, like Cal mentioned, I think people will try to lowball you if you try to trade him,
Mm.
like for whatever reason. And DJ Moore, just looking at my Twitter timeline, you either hate DJ Moore with a passion that you really shouldn't have, um, or you think he's going to be like a top 5 guy next year, a top 5 wide receiver. I'm going to find that guy in my league and be like, I got this DJ Moore. Like, if you can give me 2 firsts and maybe, we've brought him up a million times, so let's bring him up one more time. I'm on Ross St. Brown. We can get a deal done. Like, I know you love him. You know you love him. This is a small price to pay. And they're probably like, yeah, 2 firsts and I'm on Raw. Yeah, like, and I don't know if the Panthers will ever get him a good quarterback. It's unfortunate because he's done really well with the Teddy Bridgewaters and the Sam Darnolds and the broken down Cam Newtons of the world. But if he actually had a real quarterback, I mean, I do think he could soar. But
He's getting one this year. He is.
You think Sam Darnold's going to be good?
No. No,
Oh.
I think they're going to go out and trade for Deshaun Watson. That's to me. Like, I think they're making a splash. The Panthers, they look at the division, right? Like the Falcons, still Matt Ryan, like, it's still kind of a mess there. The Saints, I mean, you're going to need to replace the quarterback, maybe the running back now, wide receivers, tight end, and Tom Brady just retired. You got Chris Godwin, like you mentioned, he's a free agent. The division's wide open, and that's a management group that is that they are aggressive and they don't mind going out and making a move. And there's been a lot of comments, not necessarily about Deshaun Watson, but there was some smoke there. But I think if we found out that his legal situation was behind him, if we found that out tomorrow, which we won't, but if we did, I think very quickly we'd have a trade for Deshaun Watson from the Panthers. They're going to be the most aggressive. But whether it's him, whether it's Rodgers, whether it's Wilson, they're going to make a big splash, I think. And if it is Watson, okay, off the field stuff, like separate that out. Like that's a different show. The matchup, like think about what Deshaun Watson did with Will Fuller, and now put DJ Moore in that spot. And that would be so much fun. That's what I want to see.
Listen,
I love
it. Yeah, I hope you're right because besides the Broncos, I don't know if I've seen an organization get the quarterback wrong for such a long period of time. Actually, the Cowboys did it in the early 2000s. Now that I'm thinking about it, for a very long time. But yeah, Drew raised his hand. I forgot
Bills have entered the chat.
The Bills have entered the chat. Yeah.
That Browns jersey where you got the
all right,
30 names on the back.
16.
I've been corrected. It's the Browns. The Browns have been doing it since 1999 with Tim Couch. But yeah, so man, that would be great because I mean DJ Moore is amazing, but Robbie Anderson has proven that he can be good. Maybe they can resuscitate Terrace Marshall. They have, Christian McCaffrey, obviously. So that'd be a lot of fun. I hope you're right about that and wrong about the comment you made about Aaron Rodgers retiring earlier. So I hope you hit 50% on those. But throw one more chat question up here before we're on our way out from Steve Dennis. Who you got in the Super Bowl? So Drew, why don't you start us off? Who do you have?
I'm going to go with the old platitude that defense wins championships. I'm going to put the Rams in a fairly high-scoring 31-20, 31-27.
All right, so we know that you have 1 and 7 on your squares because you made sure to get those numbers in there. Man, I hate this question because I want Joe Burrow to win because the dude is just like he's everything that I would want a quarterback to be. He's fearless. He's cool. He's just everything. But Matt Stafford, man, he suffered. He did like a legitimate sentence in Detroit. I mean, just playing for that organization and
For our Detroit listeners, we really appreciate you all.
oh, listen, I love the city of Detroit. This is nothing against the city of Detroit. It is the trash organization that puts the name of their city in their team name. That's what I'm talking about. People of Detroit, I love you. I listen. Anytime you want me to come down, I'll come down. I'll party with you and everything. But I mean, they treated Calvin Johnson like trash. Like they're just so many mistakes. You can even go back to Barry Sanders if you want to. I'm not going to, but he did his time. And then he was freed into the loving arms of Sean McVay. Sean McVay waited for him outside of prison and said, I've been here the whole time. I love you. We're going to do great things together. I believe in you. And they're in a Super Bowl, man. Like they're in a, so it's hard because I want Matt Stafford to win. But I guess if you're going to make me pick, give me Joe Burrow, man. Give me the Bengals. I hear this story that Aaron Donald, he's going to feast and he's going to get 17 sacks and he's going to be a monster. You know who else had a bunch of sacks? The Tennessee Titans. And you know what happened to them? They lost. They hit him 9 times, and every time he got up, Joe Burrow got up, and he was just a little bit more stubborn. He was like, no. Yeah, sack number 7, I'm still not going to lose this game. Sack number 8, you can't beat me. Sack number 9, look at the final scoreboard. And I think they're going to get their sacks. Don't get me wrong. Aaron Donald is a monster. I don't even think he's a human being. Jalen Ramsey can pick off any pass at any time. They're good on defense. But Joe Burrow, he's the cheat. He's going to unlock the Bengals, and he's gonna win the Super Bowl. What do you think, Cal? Break the tie here.
I love it. So I don't know if you know this, but after the season was over, so I'm a Saints fan. I'm from New Orleans, and after the season was over, I said, okay, now that my Saints have been eliminated, I am temporarily changing my fanhood over to the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm rooting for Joe Burrow. EAUX, because on senior night with LSU Tigers, he came out and wore that Joe Burrow jersey.
I loved it.
And that just shows how much of a get it guy he is, right? He understands the role he has. He knows how to play it. He's just so good at, and imagine like in the locker room, how if he's good at that, imagine how good he is with the relationship he has with everybody there. Like just that leadership, that like, that's the guy you want to go to war with, right? Like that is, who else would you want on your side other than him? I agree. I love, like, Stafford's great. Go to breakfast with him, like Cooper Kupp. But if I'm going to go to battle, I want Burrow. And Drew, so defense wins championships, right? Like, so this season, the Rams gave up 5,964 yards. The Bengals gave up 5,863 yards, about 100 yards less. I'll take the Bengals defense coming up with a big turnover at the end for the win.
They've done it a few times.
That Bengals defense, they're the giant slayers. Like they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They can't win. They were down 21. What was it? 21-3. Oh, they're done. They're toast. Defense.
And their kicker, how can you not root for that guy? Like that guy went out and said, like, I guess we're going to the AFC Championship, and then nailed the kick. Like, so much fun, man.
There's some good storylines. There's a good clip there of Burrow and Whitworth too, hanging out after both of them got injured. I don't know if you read it or saw that. Really cool to see the two of them get together because they're staying to get near each other, rehabbing or something. So yeah, I think this is one of the first Super Bowls where I will really be content regardless of the outcome. Excited for whoever wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Cal and I are with the city of Cincinnati. Who they? Drew is, Drew's against you. Sorry, Andrew Hall, DAP Network brother there. He's against you. He's
burning bridges.
He's rooting for the LA Rams. Do people in LA even watch football? I don't even know. But no, man, I agree with you 100%. Like, this is the one Super Bowl that, like, I'm gonna be really happy for the team that wins, but I'm actually gonna be, like, really upset for the team that loses too. Usually I pick that team right away and I'm like, this is the team, like, I'm riding behind them, and yeah, it's gonna be tough. But what wasn't tough was this episode, man. This episode was great. Cal, appreciate you coming on, man. This was just so much fun. I watch you on your DLF show. The Dynasty Refinery has just been so good. You and Tyler are great. I mean, I love the opposites. Like, it's just like you guys are opposite, but you guys work so well together. Tyler's been on the show before, and he's a blast to have as a guest. So I can't imagine working with him every week. But just in case somebody kind of zipped through the beginning, maybe they were listening at 1.5 and didn't hear it. Just remind everybody where they can find you, what you're up to.
Yeah, appreciate it. At Calvin Hobby. Just, you can follow me on Twitter. I always post stuff, with links to the YouTube stuff. Like, so just follow me there. You guys have been great. I love this. Thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, everybody definitely, if you're watching this, make sure you're subscribed, because, just check. Sometimes I don't even realize I'm watching somebody. I'm like, oh, I haven't subscribed yet. Make sure that's not you. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the like button. Like, YouTube likes that. It's free. Just use your little clicker and hit the like button, and YouTube likes it, and it'll recommend it to other people so that they can get a chance to see that. And it's a really easy way to support, these guys who are giving up their time, working hard, and just talking football, so it's so much fun. Like, appreciate you guys, and keep doing what you're doing. And I'll be excited when Josh, me and you are right, and we can say, like, haha, Drew, you were wrong. The Rams lost.
Yeah, I can't wait. I got Drew's number, so as soon as Evan McPherson makes the game-winning kick again in the Super Bowl, I'll text him, and just Cincinnati Bengal gifts is all I'll text him.
Josh gets plenty of opportunities to share those gifts and tell me I'm wrong.
I love every second of it. But Drew, you're gonna have to cut Cal's part out at the end there, because he took like half of my outro and did it way better than I've ever done it. So just the like and all, and the subscribe, just cut all that out, and we'll just loop it at the end of every show, because that's perfect. But no, I do appreciate everybody who tuned in. Chat was awesome. We had Kevin in here, we had Steve in here. I know there were people that were in and out. Like Cal said it way better than I ever have. Hit subscribe, hit the bell. Heck, man, if you agreed with something or disagreed with something, leave a comment. Like, those comments are great. Hey, you can call me a big idiot. Like, that's cool too. Like, leave that comment. Like, do that. Yeah. That's fine. I will respond, and I will be like, I agree with you that you're a very observant person. Listen, I know everyone can't make it to YouTube. So if you're listening to this on podcast, appreciate you too. We're about an hour and almost 20 minutes into this thing. That's a long time. You could literally be doing anything else, and you're spending time listening to us. I appreciate that. Again, on whatever podcast directory you use, hit subscribe. If you can, leave a rate and review. Trust me, I read them. I read all the good ones. Heck, I read the bad ones too. People love to not like me, and I am cool with that. Just leave the rate and review anyway. I'm fine with that. It gets us out there. It gets
one. No, Josh is great. Like, don't leave a bad one. No, don't. Like, what are you doing? Just log off. Don't do that. Like, leave a good one.
Listen, I've had people listen multiple times just to leave multiple bad reviews, and I'm like, first of all, you listened, which is cool. That gets the count up. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And honestly, we get way more good ones than we get bad ones. So yeah, it might be like a 4.8 instead of like a 5.0, but that's still really good. Just get the comments so we can move up in the Apple algorithm that none of us will ever be able to figure out. But no, I do. I appreciate everybody. I don't care what kind of comment you leave or rate or review. It's obviously good to read the good ones, but I mean, if you leave a constructive one, I like those too because obviously we can all get better at what we do, and if you can point something out that I've missed, hey, I'm down for it. So,
I like the good ones
Drew,
for the record.
yeah,
good ones.
only good. Don't worry, Drew. You only get good ones, so you're fine. Like,
If it's gonna be negative, just make it like you're disappointed that Josh is not actually DMX. Like you thought he was gonna be DMX when you tuned in, and he's not, and you're disappointed. Like that's fine. You can leave a negative one if you're gonna do that. Otherwise, it should all be positive.
I'm trying to get the hair, which is cool because I'm going bald, so it's usually pretty short anyway. So I'll be there one day. I'll be DMX one day. I'll do a gravelly voice. So we'll get there one day, guys. You and us together, we'll get there. But Drew, we've had a lot of fun with this outro. Way more fun than I think we've ever had with the outro. So why don't we get out of here, brother?
Late.